back, everyone, to Coffee and UFOs, two of my favorite things. I have a special guest with me, Dan Harari. He is the author of the popular 2022 Hollywood memoir, Flirting with Fame, a Hollywood publicist recalls 50 years of celebrity close encounters. And he's also the author of After They Came, and he's also the host of Paranormal Tonight on the UnX network, which this program happens to be rebroadcast on Friday mornings, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 11 p.m. Pacific Time, Thursday night. So you want to go check out this show, Dan's show, and all the other great shows on the UnX network. And speaking of the UnX network, October 11th through the 15th, the UnX network is having their symposium, their conference. It's going to be really exciting. So if you want to find out more about that, go to the UnX network page. You can contact them directly. You can purchase tickets through the website. And from my understanding, is that this conference is the third year in a row. I think is that right, Dan? Third year?
I believe it. That's
Something
correct.
like that. Yeah, a third year in a row. It's doing really well and it's growing. So now's kind of a good time to get in on the ground and experience it before it really explodes. And I don't know if ticket prices are going to go up or not, but it's always kind of fun to be at the ground level of these things. If you like this podcast and the Mystic Lounge podcast, both found here on youtube.com/Mystic Lounge, please comment down below, share your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you have to say, especially if you are an experiencer yourself. And if you listen to this as a podcast version, please go on over to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts and give a good rating there and a review. I'd really, really appreciate it. It really helps the show, and you guys are all a part of that. So thank you so much. Now let's bring on Dan Harari. Dan, welcome.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. You and I have emailed on and off for, I don't know, maybe a year or something, but it's great to finally put a face to the email, and nice to meet you. And we have the UnX in common, and we have New Jersey in common.
We do have New Jersey in common. That's true.
Apparently,
we are both New Jersey natives.
We are.
Yeah, we're both grew up near the coast, and we were just talking about how things have changed in New Jersey and have really cleaned up a lot.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So I was born in 1956 in Neptune, New Jersey, which is just a couple of blocks from Asbury Park, which is very, very famous. My parents were both from Brooklyn. They met on, it's a cute story. My parents met on Coney Island Beach in 1950. My mother was 15 when they met.
This is already very Jersey.
Yeah, it's just so Jersey. My parents met. My mother was 15. My father was 19. Summer of 50 on Coney Island. They fell in love. They got married in 52 in, I think they got married in Manhattan, I believe, but they're from Brooklyn. And then my dad got a job in 51, actually, with Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, which is a top secret military army base that is a electronics research facility. They have thousands of patents of electronics and high-tech things. And this will come in handy in a minute when I tell you the rest of the story.
Sure. Yeah.
But my dad worked at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey in Belmar, which is right near Asbury Park. And so I grew up in just outside Asbury Park my whole childhood and teenage years, on the boardwalk, on the beach. I have home movies of me and my little brothers, ringing the little bells on the little fire engines on the rides when we're pretending that we're driving, like I'm 4 and my brother's 2 or something.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful childhood.
Did you play skeet ball? Did you have that when you were a child?
I loved skee ball.
Some people don't know what that is outside of
that. Oh man,
Jersey.
If that's not a Jersey thing, then nothing is.
It really is. It's an addictive game. It's so simple, but I absolutely love it.
Me and my parents, and I guess my middle brother, we would go. There was also something on the boardwalk called Crisp Patty, which I've never seen since. They were like rice. They were like rice crackers, but they were like honey-coated rice crackers, and they came in yellow cellophane, and there were maybe 4 or 5 of these rice cakes. And my dad loved Crisp Patties, And so we used to go there. And then my mother loved Coors, Kohrs, frozen custard ice cream. So when I was a little kid, man, I'm eating crisp patties
Frozen
with my
custard.
dad and frozen
Mhm.
custard with my mom, and it was really it was a lovely childhood that I had.
I
Really,
kind of feel like if those were still around, we would have found some way to deep fry them.
I don't know whatever happened to crisp patties or Coors. I was at Asbury a month ago. I was telling you off camera a month ago. I was there for my 50th high school reunion,
Yeah.
and I walked the Asbury Boardwalk the first time, probably maybe ever in my entire life, alone ever, because I was always with my parents or my friends or my brothers, always.
Yeah.
And there's no more Coors ice cream and things that Mr. Peanut, when I was a kid, Mr. Peanut, Planters Peanuts, like the
Yeah.
7-foot tall guy with the peanut with the monocle. He used to walk around. Here, kids, have some. We used to get fresh.
You had an actual physical Mr. Peanut.
We had. I met Mr.
Okay.
Peanut, Alan.
Okay.
I met the Mr. Peanut. I
So at
did.
least now we know he was real.
He was real,
Not
and
not cryptozoological myth. This is the
well,
real.
actually, I guess if we saw him now, we would say he was a cryptid, right? I
Okay,
mean,
fair enough. Yeah.
a peanut man. Yeah.
Cool. So hey, we can talk about Jersey for a while, but I'm sure people are interested in UFOs a little bit more. So let's. You've been a publicist out on the West Coast, so you moved out of Jersey, and then you've written multiple books on the topic of extraterrestrials, UFOs. Where did that start? Where did that interest start for you? Did it actually start in New Jersey, maybe?
Okay, well, that's a very good question. I'll give you the shorthand, sort of.
Sure.
I've been a Hollywood industry publicist, and a lot of people, including my mother, don't know what a publicist is or does. A publicist promotes films, TV shows, right? Plays, books, visual effects companies, music, animation. I promote. I always, my joke is I promote the accomplishments of others. Okay, and I made a pretty good living.
That's a good description. I like that.
That's what I do. At my own expense is the other part of that joke.
Did you have to clean up the accomplishments of others?
Not really. Not really. There's one thing that just came to mind. I was the publicist for a TV show in the 80s called Harry and the Hendersons. The TV show, not the movie.
Okay. Oh, but still, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
And this is something that just came to mind. I haven't even thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
The male actor who played Harry, he was inside this, 8-foot tall costume.
Sure.
Was an African-American guy, a very sweet guy. And he got AIDS. He developed AIDS during the run of the show.
Mm.
So he was doing the show and becoming sick and sick and sick. And then he died. And nobody knew how to, because this is before, like, you could tell someone really that you had AIDS and you died of AIDS,
Yeah, it was, in a way, it was almost like outing someone.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was like Rock Hudson who came out first. Like, I think he was the first major star to come out.
Rock Hudson was, yeah.
I believe he was. Mm-hmm. So and I don't even remember his name, but we had to write a release that this actor had passed away from pneumonia. And I think, if I recall correctly, this is 40 years ago, but I think the wife said, why don't we tell the world what really happened? And the studio's like, no, this is a kid show. This is a kid show. We can't say Harry died of AIDS. So we had to write a press release that it was pneumonia. And then I think months and months later, after he passed, it came out. But, there are publicists. I'm a happy-go-lucky Hollywood publicist. I like to do happy-go-lucky TV shows, movies, plays, books, artists, musicians, animators, visual effects artists. My clientele, I've been very fortunate. My clientele are very above board people. Yeah. They design, create, and produce content for the general public that's enjoyed all over the world. So there are publicists, Alan, that do, it's called crisis management PR,
Sure.
Like when Eddie Murphy, I think Eddie Murphy picked up a transsexual prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard years ago. And he said, oh, I was just giving this poor lady a ride. She was hitchhiking. That's crisis management.
Okay. Okay.
I could do that. I'd rather. I don't need people
Well,
calling me at 3 a.m. crying.
yeah, no, I get it. So interesting. The UFO cover up has its own sort of crisis management side of things too. So
Oh, sure,
let's talk about
sure.
that. So again, have you seen a UFO? Have you had a close encounter experience?
Okay, so in answering your earlier question,
Hmm.
I went with the 40 years Hollywood publicist.
Yeah.
That's one track of my life. Here's
Hmm.
my hand.
Yeah.
Okay, the other track of my life from the age of 5 have been paranormal experiences. Okay, and in fact, because I got to do this or my mother will yell at me. My book, My Paranormal Life, this just came out a few weeks ago. This is my paranormal memoir. These are all true
Mm,
stories of
okay.
really off the wall supernatural things that have happened to me in real life. This is nonfiction. Okay, so to answer your question, um, in I have to start, and you asked, did it start in New Jersey? It actually did. In March 1970,
Hmm.
my father picked me up one day from school in the afternoon and drove me home. I'm in my father's car. It's daylight. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, daylight. He's driving me home right near Asbury Park. It's called West Deal. It's right next to Asbury Park. And as we're driving, I look through the windshield of my father's car, and there's a huge UFO was hovering above my father's car. It was a silver V, big giant V like the letter Victor, V like Victor, right? Hovering
Right.
above my father's car, huge, and it was enormous. And it was following the car slowly. And I looked through the windshield and I said, Dad, look, there's a UFO. Stop the car. Dad, stop the car. Stop the car. There's a UFO. I'm jumping up and down. He stopped the car. We get out. We stand in front of the car. And I'm 13. It's March 70. And I remember the date and the month because I bought a new Jimi Hendrix album that night. And it just had come out. So that's how I know March 70.
Yeah.
Dad, look, a UFO. Dad, look, a UFO. My father looked at it, Alan, like he'd seen it 5 million times, couldn't care less, bored to tears, no interest whatsoever. And I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm jumping up and down. I think
Yeah.
I said, Dad, look, it's Star Trek. Dad, it's Star Trek. It's Star Trek. Right? I'm freaking out, man. Look, Alan, if this was you and me, or me and you, or any other
Sure. Sure.
normal person on the planet, we'd be high fiving and dancing the horror and, hugging and kissing and taking pictures. We'd be so excited. My father was like, couldn't care less, looking at his watch, looking at his
Wow.
shoes, no interest. Okay, so there's a lot more to that story. And I always wondered,
Yeah, there must be some subtext to your
yeah,
father.
I'll say,
Yeah.
is understatement. But I remember in the moment, I'm like, why isn't my dad scared or happy
Mhm.
or enthralled? I was enthralled, right?
Yeah.
Nothing, zero reaction. So finally, my dad, I'm going to say 2-3 minutes. Then my dad looked at me. He said, "Come on, kid, let's go home." I remember that part. Let's go home.
Were you stopped? Still?
We had stopped the car and got out. And this is like in front of one of my best friends. This was in my neighborhood where I grew up. It was in front of one of my best friend's houses. It was
Hmm.
just it was like seeing the pyramid of Egypt above your father's car. It was utterly
Sure.
incongruous. It just made no sense to be there whatsoever.
Hmm.
Silent. It was very shiny, silver, silent, no smoke, no propellers, nothing. Just hanging above my father's car. I don't know, 400 feet,
Hmm.
500 feet, but pretty low. We get in the car, go home. This is March 1970, rotary phone. If anyone listening or watching remembers what a rotary phone is.
Have you seen that video where the dad brings his two kids a rotary phone and to ask them if they know how to work it and they can't figure it out? It's great.
I have to
Yeah.
watch that. I
Yeah.
have to watch that. Listen, I'll tell you, when I was 15,
Hmm.
when I was 15 on my birthday, my parents got me a push button telephone. Okay. And I think I cried. I'm pretty,
Oh,
because I had it. A, it was push button,
yeah,
and
yeah,
B,
yeah.
it was in my room. I had a phone in my room. Are
Hmm.
you kidding? It's unheard of. My
Yeah.
friends didn't even have phone. We didn't have phones. You didn't have phones. Every 7-year-old on the planet has an iPhone and a Android. I mean, man, to get a phone? Are you
Hmm.
kidding? In the 70s? Are you kidding me? All right, so I come home, rotary phone. I call on the kitchen phone, call the Asbury Park Press, my hometown newspaper. I say, "Hi, my name is Danny. I just saw a UFO with my father. It was a big giant V in the sky." And this is true. And the lady said, "Sonny, I can't talk to you right now. We're getting hundreds of phone calls right now about this. I wish I had time. I can't talk to you. I got to go. I'm really sorry." Remember, the lady said that to me.
Sure, sure.
She hung up. I checked the paper every day that week. Nothing ever ran. No article ever ran.
Okay.
Now, the most remarkable part, on top of the fact that I saw a silver V above my father's car, was that I forgot about that story for 47 years. Okay. It just wasn't top of mind. My father and I never, even to his dying day, he and I never ever once discussed that story. Okay. I forgot that happened. It wasn't discussed. It wasn't recalled. It wasn't talked about in my family. I don't even think I told my mother or my two younger brothers.
Mm-hmm.
It just was, it was, from A to Z, it was a half-hour experience. Okay, now we cut to 47 years later. Okay, now we're in April 2017. I've been living in LA since 1980, so I've been here forever. April 2017, my dad passed away in Florida with his second wife. It was not a good death. He didn't have a good death. 3 days after my father died, I went to the deli that he and I used to go to. We used to go to a deli here in LA to get pastrami sandwiches when my dad used to come visit me in LA from Jersey, and then from Florida. When he retired, he went to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to get a pastrami sandwich in my father's honor and to think about my dad and be sad. That was my goal for that day. Well, that day changed my life. The day I went to get a pastrami sandwich, literally, it changed my life. How? I ordered the sandwich. The waiter walked away. I'm sitting at the table thinking about my dad. A beam of energy or light from above, and this is, I swear to you, everything I'm going to tell you now is true, man. A
Okay.
beam from above, bang from the sky, banged into my head like this, hard into my
You could
head.
feel
It was like bang into my head, and then
like a
through
like
my.
a like a. Did it feel physical or just more like a force?
It felt like a bolt of lightning in my head.
Okay.
I mean, I actually hit my head.
Mm-hmm.
And then through my eyes and brain, apparently, was projected. I'll do this if I can do it in the air, in
Mm-hmm.
front of my face, about 6, 8 inches in front of my face, projected 3D color home movie of the 1970 UFO sighting I had with my father. It played with audio. It played
Interesting.
in a deli 47 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm watching this and I'm like, what the hell is happening? Well,
Mm-hmm.
this is impossible. And here's what's interesting. People have said to me it was a memory. It wasn't a memory because I was in the movie. This wasn't from my eyes. This was like God himself had been a cameraman behind my father's car.
Mm-hmm.
So there's my father's car, there's my dad and me standing, and then there's the V in the sky. And the camera, I'm going to call it God was the cameraman. God took this whole movie from behind my father's car. I was in the movie itself. So it wasn't from my eyes like I remembered seeing. I was in the movie and I'm jumping up and down and I'm saying, Dad, a UFO, UFO.
Yeah.
So as I'm watching that, I'm like, I remember that now. I remember that. Okay, now here's the killer. After, I don't know, this whole little video played for maybe 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
In this video version, my dad looks down at me. He winks at me. My father winks at me. And then he said, come on, kid, let's go home. And then this little movie dissipated and it just stopped playing. Well, I'm shaking. Alan, I'm shaking. I'm like,
Sure.
what the hell? What the hell was that?
Yeah.
My heart's beating fast. I'm like, I mean, if that's not a supernatural paranormal experience, there is no such thing. So now I hear in my right ear, get a pen, you need a pen, get a pen.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the waiter for a pen, put it in my right hand. There's a paper placemat on the table at the deli. My hand did automatic writing. My hand, not me. My hand wrote, write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. And then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C. My hand stopped moving, and that was it. I held this paper in my hand. I'm shaking. I'm like, what the hell is happening here? I'm looking and looking. And after a couple of minutes, I came up with ATC. I suck at this so bad.
Gotcha. No.
After they came, this book was given to me. This book was given to me at the deli when I was mourning my father. It came from, I think it came from my father from heaven. My friend Steve Bassett thinks it was an ET download that I got from an extraterrestrial download. I like to think it was my father from heaven. So now, who was my father? right after my father died, I found out who my father was, Alan. I didn't even know. Nobody in my family, we never knew who my father was his whole life. My father worked for the U.S. Army from 1951 to 96,
Mhm.
Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, top secret U.S. Army base. They invented all kinds of electronics and new technologies for the Army. Okay.
Okay.
Um, After my father died, I called my mother. She's still alive. I told you she'll be 90 in 2 weeks. My mother turns 90. And I said, Mom, in all the years you were with Dad, my mother was his first wife. I said, all the years you were with Dad, did Dad ever talk about UFOs at all? My father invented missiles, radars, and after he died, I found out he helped invent military drones.
Wow.
Drones. And,
What
and I
what
have
was
and I have proof
he?
and I have proof of that as well.
Okay, so you like, did he have education as a like an engineer or?
Yes.
Okay,
My father had a master's degree in electronics. He was an electronics engineer and a physicist.
gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
and did you know any of that at all?
No, I knew
Um,
he was a genius. I mean, we all knew my father was a genius. This is interesting. Side story.
mhm.
My father had two older brothers. His oldest of the two, Frank Harari. If you Google Frank Harari, when he died, it was in the New York Times. My uncle Frank was a world famous mathematician genius. World famous genius. Okay. He invented mathematic theories that are still being used today. So my dad's side of the family, there were sparks of genius on that side of the family.
Mhm.
Okay, so I asked my mother. I said, "Did Dad ever talk about UFOs?" She goes, "In the early." Here's a story I never heard before, Alan, and I only heard this after he died. My mother said, in the early '50s, they took your dad deep into the vaults at Fort Monmouth, and they showed him something above top secret. And he came home that night. He was pale and shaking and very nervous. And my mother said to my father, "What's wrong, honey? What's wrong?" And my father said to my mother, this is probably 52, 53.
Okay.
My father said, "I saw something today in the vaults at the base. It's top secret. I can never tell you or anyone as long as I live." My father never told a soul. And my mother said he was never the same after that day. Now, do you know the Jackie Gleason, Richard Nixon
I
story?
do, and I was just going to ask you. So it sounds like there really is some kind of the vault, so to
the
speak,
the
right?
way my mother said it, man, she was. My mother was telling. My mother is her brain is perfect, even though she's 90. Her brain is perfect. Her body is
Mhm.
not so good. My mother has perfect recall and perfect memory. The way my mother said the vault, deep in the vaults. My
Mhm.
father must have said those words to my mother. He had to have said the vaults. How else would my mother know the vaults?
Mhm.
Whatever my dad saw, Alan, this is my conjecture today, but I believe my dad saw either a recovered UFO craft of
Mhm.
some kind, or a piece of technology, UFO, ET technology.
Mhm.
I don't think he saw a living alien or an alien body. I don't know. Who knows? Why would he? Because Fort Monmouth was all about electronics and technology. That's what they did there. They invented technologies there.
Mm.
I think he saw either a craft or a chunk of a craft. That's my gut feeling.
Had I only known so close to me was a secret vault with
Oh
alien
yeah.
technology. Wow.
So that's part of the story.
Yeah.
Then, after my father died, I went through my old scrapbooks
Hmm.
and I found something he gave me in 1985 that I didn't know I had. In 1985, there was a newsletter written at my father's workplace, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and it was a profile that
Hmm.
this employee of the month, right? Jack Harari, employee, whatever it was said, and they profiled my father, and it said essentially it said my father helped invent, design, and invent military drones. I have this in writing from Fort Monmouth.
And what year was that?
The newsletter was 85.
85. That would make
My,
sense because the like our understanding of like with the CIA development of drones like kind of started, I think, what, the late 70s.
I think it
I think
started in the 50s.
you
I
think it
think
started way back
I
then.
think
Yeah.
drones started way, way, way early.
Well, conceptually, but viable, flyable
That I'm not sure,
drones.
but
Okay.
this was 85. But in this paper, Alan, you
Hmm.
made a good point. It said My father oversaw the first test of a military drone using laser technology to destroy a tank at White Sands Missile Testing Range in 1975. That's
Laser
what it's.
technology. Wow.
Yeah, a drone with laser technology, and it destroyed a tank. I have this in writing, and that was in 75. So you're right, man, in the 70s, right?
Now, yeah, I mean, Star Wars would have only made sense if Reagan believed that we actually had laser technology. Um,
Well, he was talking about Star Wars in the early 80s.
yeah,
So if my dad is destroying tanks with lasers, drones in 1975,
right.
then it existed already.
Okay, so could any of these drones that were in the air be mistaken for UFOs at the time?
Well, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going.
Mm,
I believe the silver UFO that my father and I saw together. I believe strongly that that was a military-made drone that incorporated extraterrestrial technology. My father, and I'm telling you from my heart, man, because I saw his face. He looked at it like he's looking at a head of lettuce at the supermarket.
mhm,
He'd seen this thing 5,000 times. He knew what it was. He
okay.
had just no expression of any kind. Who wouldn't have an expression of any kind?
Or yeah, lack of surprise.
Lack of surprise. It was like,
Sure.
oh, that again? Okay. Couldn't care less, man. So,
So wait,
and
that would have been a literal V shape.
it was a shiny silver V above above my father's car, hovering for no apparent reason, and that was it, man. And then also, when my dad and I got back in the car, and we drove slowly to go home, the V
Mhm,
then followed the car. I remember for about a block,
yeah.
and I go, Dad, look, it's still up there. My father said no words, and then it just sped up, and then it sort of shot off in the distance.
Well, I mean, that doesn't sound like a drone though, because a drone relies on aerodynamics, right?
Well, look, Alan, if that was a real ET craft, my dad knew what it was. I mean,
I mean, to
if
be honest, I mean, just based on what we
if
know
there were
about,
aliens, in there, whatever that was, I'm just telling you, my
sure.
dad knew what it was, whatever it was.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense to me that he would have had experience with alien tech or have seen or witnessed or been informed in some way that would account for his lack of surprise rather than it's a drone of some sort that he had worked on or was a part of.
I don't like to go out on the limb and say my dad and I saw an alien UFO. I don't go out on that limb.
Yeah, but a drone doesn't send you a message from in the future to remind you of your experience, right?
Okay, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
However, I've seen three other drones since three other UFOs since that first one. I think
Mm.
my third UFO is the one that sent me the message. Let me just
No, no, but that's what I
let me
mean
just
though. Like, so that why would that UFO right send you a message about a drone experience? It seems to me that if a UFO, let's just assume non-human intelligence derived, would
that's a
send you a message, it would be something related to something they're aware of, or something related to them. Just to guess here, but
okay.
yeah,
So that's a great comment. You are the only person that has said that to me, and now I'm thinking, well, okay. Let me tell you about my third experience
sure. Okay.
because I think the third one allowed that little home movie download to happen.
Hmm.
But you make a good point, right? If that was a military drone in 70, military drone, why would I have a paranormal experience 47 years later remembering that versus why would no, I would have remembered an alien craft would
Hmm.
have made more sense.
Yeah.
That I have to think about that now, man. Now, let me just add. There's one thing I have to add.
Sure. Yeah.
Last summer, I think it was June last year, 2023. Dr. Stephen Greer gave a 3-hour talk at the Washington Press Club about his whistleblower network. I think he
Hmm.
has like 75 or 80 men and women lined up to testify before Congress, once Congress, if they ever pass the Schumer-Rounds bill,
Okay.
to be protected, to say, we know about aliens, we know about craft, we've worked on technology, we've worked on UFOs, we've worked with aliens dead and alive.
Hmm.
So he did a 3-hour talk. I watched the whole thing on my big TV in my living room. And then he said, here's a chart of 145 U.S. military bases that I, meaning Stephen Greer, I have proof of from my whistleblower network that these military bases worked on reverse engineering of UFO technology. Okay, so Alan, so he shows a slide, 145 U.S. military bases. I freeze framed that slide on my big TV. I walked up with my finger. I went like this. Number 51, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey.
Mm.
Well, you can imagine.
Mhm.
You can imagine. I called my mother. I go, Mom, I have proof now.
Sure.
Dad knew about reverse engineering. Dad was in. Your father doesn't know about aliens. Your father he would have told me about I go, Mom, he knew all about it. He never said a word because he couldn't, but he told me after he died what he did for a living. So, yeah, father, you're crazy. Your father never knew about it. So I thought that was pretty good, Stephen Greer, right? All right, my third UFO sighting, 2008. Do you know what the ESETI Ranch is?
Yeah,
ESETI?
in fact, we went there and had a paranormal experience ourselves there, my
There
wife
you
and I.
go. Okay, so
Mhm.
you're going to relate to what I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, I'll back up a hair. In 2007, I went one day to a bookstore waiting for a friend for a movie. I went into a bookstore. There was a paranormal books aisle. I never heard of paranormal books in my life. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah.
So I saw, crop circles, Nazca lines, the pyramids, Eric von Daniken Chariots of the Gods, Zechariah Sitchin, Genesis Revisited, the Betty and Barney Hill story, Travis Walton. I'm like,
Mhm.
what? Where has all this information? I had never been in a paranormal book style in my life.
Wow.
I go, where has all this information been, Oma? I bought 12 books. I read them all. I was enthralled,
Yeah.
enthralled. And in those books, I'm reading for the very first time ever in my life about MUFON. I didn't know what MUFON was.
Mhm.
This is 2007. So I looked up MUFON, and they have a Southern California chapter. So I started to go. I've been going ever since. My very first MUFON meeting now and ever, Giorgio Tsoukalos is the guest speaker. How about
Wow,
that?
that's fun.
It's
That's
like it's
funny.
like seeing
Yeah.
it's like you go to one baseball game in your life and
Uh,
Babe Ruth is hitting a home run, right?
yeah, that's so 2007. That's only 2 years before the episode, the pilot for
Exactly right.
Ancient Aliens. Yeah.
So I saw him before he was famous and before
Mhm.
the show existed.
Yeah.
He does 90 minutes on ancient alien theory in this it was in a church in North Hollywood, maybe 50 people
Yeah.
max, maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm like this, and he's doing Nazca and ancient Egypt and aliens and Moses parting the Red Sea with the
Yeah.
extra with UFOs and the Bible and the petroglyphs and crop circles, and he's doing ufology's greatest hits, man. I'm like this, Alan. I'm like this. I have tears. I have like tears. There's tears. I'm not even kidding. I have tears like this
Why were you tearing though?
because I'm like, this explains the whole world to me. This explains everything. I'm thinking, this is the real information about humanity and Earth and the Earth. And no one, my parents, my rabbi, and my teachers and my friends, nobody ever told me any of this information when I was a kid.
Mm.
I never knew any of these things.
So it was like suddenly things life made sense, or who we are, or our history made sense.
Everything.
So that.
And I'm honest to God, I'm not exaggerating. I was crying.
Mhm.
I was actually crying. He stops talking. I go up to him at the end. I hugged him. I go, Giorgio, man, my name is Dan. I go, you just changed my view of the entire world.
Mhm.
And he goes, cool, man. That's cool. You're one of us now. That's what he said. Now I've met him many, many times since then. He knows me now.
When
But
I
but
remember
that
when I. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
oh that day, that first, and this is my very, very first MUFON meeting ever.
Mhm.
And I get Babe Ruth. I get Eric Von Daniken's mentee, and he's doing 90 minutes on ancient alien theory with slides and films and it changed my whole direction for the next 20 years.
Oh yeah, but don't you think that sometimes there is a bit of a reach with some of the ancient astronaut hypotheses, or alleged evidence? Because I'm with you. I think there is evidence, but I think over the years there might be too much of a reach just to fill television content.
That's very funny. A couple of things. One is last time I saw Giorgio last year at Alien Con,
Hmm.
I gave him my book after they came as a gift, and I said, Giorgio, thank you for all that you do. And he puts his head on my shoulder. He goes, Danny,
Hmm.
he goes, man, it's all just smoke and mirrors. Don't tell anybody.
He just told people.
That's what he said to me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know, I know. I shouldn't have said that, but that's George. Literally, it's all spoken.
Well, I mean, there's also look. There's the infotainment side of things, and I'm totally cool with that. I really enjoy that. I don't think it should be demonized at all, because a lot of us out there we really enjoy it, and there's it's okay to have a little fantasy with it, or to just see where our imaginations take us. And Coast to Coast, has had guests on over the years that I've just loved listening to, even if I don't, necessarily believe everything they say.
I agree with you. I
Mhm.
agree with you. There's a huge kernel of truth in ancient astronaut theory. There's a huge. I mean, there are cities, huge stone cities under the oceans all over the world that are like 50,000 years
Oh,
old. And where did these come from? Our ancestors had chicken bones and sticks and twigs. They didn't build pyramids that are like under the ocean off of Japan and off of Australia. I
hmm,
mean, the more shows I watch, when they see these underwater cities, these
yeah. Oh, yeah.
tens of thousands of years preceding the pyramids, there's so much more that we really don't know. Anyway, I'm a very big proponent of ancient astronaut theory. Now, I interviewed Richard Dolan on my podcast earlier this year.
Hmm.
It was actually he and his wife. His wife is a remote viewing expert, by the way,
Tracy. Yeah.
Tracy. They were together, and I said, Richard, I strongly believe in ancient astronaut theory in the area that our ancestors, who were like Neanderthal chimpanzees with sticks and twigs, and then extraterrestrials came to Earth and injected their DNA into the workforce that was here, and then we happened. Modern man happened over the course of time. I believe that that's the case. Richard Dolan said, Dan, I've studied this for 10 years. He goes, I really don't think that happened. And I said, really? That's really interesting. I said, have you talked to George Tsoukalos about this? And he goes, yeah, many times it always gets very heated. And then I made a joke. I said, Richard, I would pay good money to see you and Giorgio on a
Yeah.
stage
Yeah. Yeah.
doing battle. I would pay money to see you guys talking. Did aliens, impregnate Neanderthal man and create modern man? So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I actually had to take Richard's side of that argument
No,
because,
I knew you would. Yeah,
yeah, because the DNA evidence at this point, maybe if we had this conversation 10 plus years ago, it could be a different one. But with the amount of paleontological evidence that we have, plus DNA recovered, I think we kind of have a much better idea of how that human, bush, they say now, rather than a tree, right, um, worked. That said, it doesn't mean there isn't room that there could have been some kind of like DNA manipulation or splicing of some sort. Uh,
Are
yeah.
you familiar with the Peruvian mummies?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, so in March this year,
Hmm.
I worked with Jaime Maussan and then two filmmakers, Michael Mazzola and Serena DC. I did a press conference here in LA in March this year. Jaime Maussan, Serena DC, Michael Mazzola, they presented the Peruvian alien mummies
Hmm.
at a press conference. We had probably 150 people at this press conference. And they had scientists in Peru and in Mexico live via cable TV. We had big screens, and they were X-raying and CAT scanning these Peruvian bodies,
Hmm.
and they have definitive proof that these were ancient living beings. I'm not going to. I didn't mean to say the word alien. These were for sure. They were ancient living beings from
Hmm.
about 1,000 years ago. They are unlike any other human, any one of our other Neanderthal or any of our other ancestors. They're completely different. I think they had 3 fingers on each hand. They had skeletons, they had muscles. One of these mummies was pregnant and had a fetus inside of it. And Jaime Maussan, who I spent the day with, he said, listen, my whole reputation, I've been doing this for 50 years. I'm telling you, these beings lived. These were beings that lived on the earth,
Hmm.
and the Peruvian government didn't want anyone to know. They slandered him. They said they were fake. He countersued. He won $300 million. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
Jaime Maussan won lawsuit against the Peruvian government
300 million?
for slander. Yeah, for
That's
slander.
an enormous amount of money.
$300 million. I don't know that he got it, but he won. He was awarded for
Oh,
slander.
okay. So it was
300
awarded. When was this?
a few months ago, earlier this year.
Wow.
If you
Okay.
Google it, you'll find it.
I actually messaged Jaime Musan because my wife and I went down to Mexico in the spring.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I was like, I'll give it a shot and just message him and see if he's in Mexico City, but he never
Did he
got.
write? Did he write back?
No, he didn't.
Oh,
He didn't.
okay.
He's got millions of followers. So
I spent a day with him. He seems to be very. No, he's now at the press. I said Jaime, and I said to my clients, Jaime, Serena, and Michael, I said, look, if we say these are alien mummies, we're going to get crucified. So Serena and Michael said, no, we will never, ever say the word alien. And I said to them, I said, I'm only doing this press conference if we do not say the word alien. I said, I have a reputation. So Jaime goes, welcome, Jaime, right with the microphone. Welcome everyone to the alien mummies from Peru. First thing he says, and I'm like,
man,
oh no.
yeah.
And all the American press that were there, they all left. They got up and left. The Mexican press ran stories, but the American press, none of the American press ran stories.
Was this at the Mexican hearing?
This is months after. The Mexican hearing was September 2023.
Yeah.
My conference in LA was March 2024 this year.
Gotcha. Okay. Because it was the one in 2023 where Ryan Graves and a whole bunch of other
yes,
people walked
exactly.
out.
Yeah, he walked exactly. He's like, how dare you do this to me? Right. But you know what, Alan? I was there, man. I spent 3 hours with Jaime and these scientists. These bodies, these were living beings. They were living beings.
That's the thing is like intuitively when especially when it comes to science, intuition doesn't really count. But when I saw the images initially, I just thought these are fake.
Like, what the Peruvian government, here's the story as I know it. In September 2023, Jaime did a presentation to the Mexican government. Okay. I think that's where Ryan Graves was at. Yeah. And he showed the real bodies. A couple of weeks later, the Peruvian government did a dog and pony show with paper mache mummies that they hired an artist to create. And they presented them to the press and they said, here's Jaime's mummies. He's full of BS and he's a liar and he's a hoaxer. That ran all over the world. If you Google Jaime Maussan, hoaxer, Jaime Maussan, the famous Mexican hoaxer. Well, Jaime countersued. He said, look, those were fake. My mummies were the real living beings. Yours were paper mache. And he won. He won $300 million.
Wait, and so who was behind the paper mache?
The Peruvian government.
They hired people to...
They hired an artist. Yeah, they hired an artist to create paper mache dummies to make, to throw Jaime Maussan under the bus, and it backfired.
So the X-rayed images we've seen online are not the paper mache dummies.
There might be X-rays of the paper maches, but if you watched Jaime Maussan's live event that I produced in March, those were real living beings.
So what do we do with that? Because, for instance, if you have these whole bodies, you can extract just some DNA or some particles. I mean, why not take like a bit of a material and send it to different labs in different
I believe that's where I believe Michael Mazzola would know this better than I believe that's where they're at now. They're waiting for DNA. Yeah, they've sent DNA all over the world to different labs, as far as I know.
That's exciting. Do you know by chance if they sent anything to Arrow?
I don't know. I don't know. At my press conference in March, there was a doctor from UCLA. And at the end, he came up to me. He goes, Dan, I'd love to get some of the DNA from these mummies. And I introed him to Jaime. I don't think anything ever happened. But this guy was dead serious. He's like, this is very interesting to me.
On the one hand, I don't find it entirely unbelievable that there's some other kind of humanoid. But I think when I think in terms of evolution here on Earth, most mammals, have 5 phalanges, and our cat has 4 on, the back paws, but 5 in the front paws, right? So that's a pretty common, but seeing 3.
They were called I think these beings were called tridactyls. Yeah,
tridactyls. That's very different. That you would expect if it was a descendant of more of a reptilian line of
Uh,
evolution rather than related to mammalian.
according to Jaime, and again, he did something that we had not approved, but he's Jaime Mason. He said these are alien mummies. He said these were early alien human hybrids, an experiment that didn't go right. That's what he said. He said this is an alien human hybrid that didn't go right. They were only 4 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
They had very short lifespans apparently, and they had three fingers on each hand.
Wow.
So who's to say, right? Who's to say that they're alien human hybrids? Maybe they were just a pygmy, fluke pygmy race of human beings.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, the Hobbit on the Isle of Flores. So we've had diminutive ancestors that are kind of an off branch of humans. So why not something even smaller?
And then we have 8 foot giants in Cyprus. The 7, 8, 9 foot skeletons in Cyprus. They were the giants. Giants. There's giants in the Bible.
Well, also the some of the skeletal remains, I think, of the like red-haired Native Americans. I think it. You know that what I'm talking about, right?
No, I don't know that one. I know about the giants of Cyprus. I just saw a documentary about that.
All right. So these were like considered in, I think it was Cherokee legends. There were these giant people with red hair that they had like were kind of embattled with, and they trapped them, cornered them into a cave, and then like burned them alive or something. And then apparently, some skulls were discovered later on, but it's like we hear these things, and then these things disappear.
Well,
So it makes you go like, is it just a myth, or because why isn't it on display at the Smithsonian or something?
I read something, I don't remember what it was, that said, why is the Smithsonian Institution purposely hiding 8 and 9 foot tall human skeletons from the world? Why are they not on display? Mm-hmm. So listen, okay, we all know whoever really runs the UFO program within the US military or government, we all know this because it's so obvious. They control anytime there's a crash or a sighting or extraterrestrials living or dead, they clean it up, they obfuscate, they make the witnesses look like morons. After David Grush testified last year, the guy's a national hero. Yeah. They said, oh, he had depression and he yelled at his wife once. Okay, really? So that negates the fact that he's telling the world aliens exist? He had depression? I've had depression my whole life.
Yeah, it's deplorable. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's whoever does that. So listen, maybe the 8-foot skeletons or the red-headed skeletons, right? Maybe the majestic. I call them. This is sort of not a joke, but to me, we all know about Majestic 12. Whether or not that really existed, I think it certainly made sense. Truman had to have had a team. He had to, whether or not it was called Majestic 12, that's another story. Mm-hmm. But he had to have had some advisors, military and scientific advisors, sure, right? Because he knew about Roswell, because they covered it up, because they rescinded a press release.
You need someone to have oversight and management of that issue.
Okay. So whoever cleaned up Roswell, and it was incredible because it took Stanton Friedman like 30 years till he dug it and said, hey, this really did happen. And he, to his credit, he brought that out from the past. What I'm thinking is whoever those, let's call it Majestic 12 for now. Whoever they were, they had the biggest secret on the planet Earth. They knew all about the biggest secret on planet Earth. They were all dead. All those guys. This was in 1945. This is 7. These are all these guys are dead. Maybe their children, right, or their cousins, right, or their nephews. Maybe it like got handed down. Like, okay, here's the baton. You're in Majestic 12 now, Billy. And like I'm thinking, who would these guys have trusted? They would have trusted their descendants, possibly. So whoever runs the black government, Lou Elizondo, New York Times bestselling book the last couple of weeks. There's pages in Lou Elizondo's book. There's pages that are redacted with the black magic marker. So they're still, and this is a New York Times best-selling book, and there's pages that are redacted in 2024.
Yeah, well, I thought that was actually a really good move on his part.
I did too.
because
I thought it was I thought it was brilliant.
yeah, it just makes it more real because people can tell you something's redacted. But when you're showing this is exactly where they decided to redact something, right? You and I have seen that, and others have seen that with FOIA documents. But for him to go out of his way and put that in the book, good on him. Like seriously.
Listen. I'm a publicist. I thought that was a brilliant marketing move. I really did.
Exactly, and it was a marketing move. It was really smart. So speaking of marketing, let's go back to your story. And so when you've had this enlightening, and let's say encounter where you had
I know
yeah,
where we were at.
yeah, yeah,
We were at Isetti Ranch, and then we went way off to the left field.
we did.
Right, we were at Isetti. I didn't tell you my Isetti Ranch story.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so 2000, so in '07 is when I joined MUFON and I saw Giorgio. In 2008, a year later, I went to another MUFON meeting in LA, and James Gilliland was the speaker, and he owns the Isetti Ranch. It's in Washington State at the base of Mount Adams. But Mount Adams is one mountain down the range from Mount Rainier, which is where Kenneth Arnold had his sighting in June '47.
Sure, yeah. He
So
actually used Mount Adams to help with his calculation of the speed.
I think that's right. Yeah,
Right,
yeah. They're like their cousin mountains. They're in the same range, right? So this is '08. So James Gilliland did a presentation with slides and videos of of many UFOs that are regularly seen above his property. His property is a world famous hotspot for UFOs for hundreds of years, apparently. So I had a girlfriend at the time named Barbara. I took her to this MUFON meeting. James said, I have a 3-day open house, July 4th, 2008 weekend. Come stay at stay at a bed and breakfast nearby, hang out at the ranch all day and night. We'll see all kinds of cool stuff. So I go to my girlfriend, Barbara. I go, Barbara, please, can we go? Can we go? Please, I want to see UFOs. Can we go? Okay, Danny, I'll go with you. So I talked to my poor girlfriend.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying. She so didn't want to go, man. So she and I went. We went bed and breakfast, and then so for 3 days on James's property, I'm going to say he has about 150 acres of absolutely nothing. It's weeds. It's weeds. You've been there. So there's 150 acres of weeds. There's his little house. There's trees around the weeds, and then in the distance is Mount Adams. That's the Isetti Ranch. That's all it is. In '08, that's all it was. So my girlfriend and I went. There was 3 days. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4th of July weekend, '08. During the days, James had a white tent on the property, and I'm going to say about 200 people were there. Okay. And during the afternoons, people like William Henry and I believe Nick Pope might have been there, and maybe David Childress, people like that were giving lectures and showing films and talking about ufology's greatest hits, the pyramids, the crop circles, Nazca, orbs, which I'd never even had heard of orbs. So during the days, they had lectures, films, and seminars and things. And then at night, they built a bonfire on the property, and men and women played guitars and tambourines and danced around the fire. And I don't know if this is your experience. And then at night, we just looked up in the sky. It's crystal clear. It's you can see forever. So Friday afternoon, lectures, seminars. Friday night, look up at the sky, nothing. Saturday, lectures, films, seminars. Saturday night, the bonfire, look up in the sky, nothing for hours. And your neck really hurts after a while. You know this.
Did they have the pointers as well, or?
I don't think they did. Okay. I don't think they did. I know we saw a satellite or two for sure, because like, oh look, no, that's the space station. Okay, so now it's the last day. It's the Sunday afternoon, lectures, film, seminars, bonfire, go out at night. We're looking up for an hour and a half in the night. Absolutely nothing's happening. This is the third and final night. So I said, and this is true, and this is kind of funny. I take out my car keys, Alan, out of my pocket. I take my car keys. I go, Barbara, if we leave right now, we can beat the rush, because there's 200 cars right there at the entrance, right? If we leave right now, we can beat the rush. As soon as I said that, man, a large black craft, and this is true, large black craft from behind the trees, from behind us, just came over our heads and just stopped. Wow. Stopped above 200 people, 400 feet, 500 feet in the air, just stopped. Huge blacked out the sky, couldn't see. I said, when I saw this thing, I said to Barbara, my girlfriend, I said, what the hell is that thing? I remember saying those words. Then underneath this craft, a large glass crystal bulb turned a light on, and it was beautiful, dark emerald green light, very, very bright, dark emerald green light, like the Wizard of Oz emerald green, in this bulb. And I'm thinking, what the hell is that? And then this green light from this bulb then bathed, and this, I swear to you, this is all true, man. I'm going to say 200 people around the bonfire bathed us, and it was in light, in green light. It was like this: light, 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 light. No sound of any kind. It was like light. It was Morse code and light, kind of. And I'm looking up, and like in the X-Files when they're all looking up and they're all on the white from the UFO. Well, me and my people, we were all green. We were emerald green.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is okay. So this is like the coolest thing ever. Number one. Number two, my heart's beating fast. Number three, Alan, I'm not hearing or thinking messages. I'm feeling messages in my heart, and the messages I'm feeling in my heart are, hello, we're here. We know you've been waiting for us. We're sorry we're late. We got stuck at Walmart down the street there. We got delayed, but thank you for waiting for us. We love you. Don't be afraid. We love mankind. Everything's cool. We are in the neighborhood. We just wanted to say hello. Love one another. Be kind to planet Earth. We have to go now. These are the messages and I still feel it to this day in my heart, not in my head. It was in my heart. Then this green light turned off. This craft just slowly moved away from us a little bit, and then bang, zoom, it flew over Mount Adams and it vanished. That was it. I cried. People were crying. It was profound. It was a remarkable. I told this story the other day to Yvonne Smith, the hypnotherapist, and she goes, God, I wish that had happened to me. Yeah. She goes, I've never had that. So people were hugging and kissing, and then that was it. And then we all drove home and flew back home, and that was it. So when I had the Delhi experience with the home movie download, to me, I'm just guessing, but I think the green light thing opened me up to it opened me to be receptive to extraterrestrial messaging. I think they're related.
Yeah. Now, it sounds like it was indeed like a really moving experience. Was that a factor in your reaction? So did you feel frozen? Did you feel like I need to grab a camera? What was?
Okay, so those are all great questions. So here's the funny thing: I have a video camera in my hand that I had been schlepping for the whole 3-day weekend. Right, it's in my hand. A video camera, it's in my hand.
Yeah.
Not even close. Did I think to? All I had to do was pull it up and let's do. Not even close. Yeah. Why? Because if you're having this kind of experience, you want to see it, smell it, hear it, taste it, feel it. You don't want to be looking at the camera. Is this in focus? And honest to God, it didn't even occur to me. I had it in my hands. It didn't occur to me. No one took photos. It's so remarkable, man. When this is happening to you, that was my third. I've had a fourth since I had one 2 months ago, the fourth one. But when this is happening to you, you just want to wow. Yeah. So at first, like I said, this thing happened. It came over us, Alan. I said, what the hell is that? I was totally skeptic. I thought someone was playing a prank on us. I thought someone like James Gilliland had arranged a special effects company from Hollywood, to say, hey, yeah, here's a UFO, and just to fool us. I really did. At first, I thought this is a prank, man. This can't be real. But then when that light came on and it's bathing us, and I'm feeling messages, then I'm like, okay, this is extraterrestrial. This is not a Chinese weather balloon. This is pretty remarkable. Yeah. And I was crying. I was crying.
In the words of younger generations, that would be an extra event.
I'm so glad that happened. Honestly,
that is amazing, because I've had experiences, but something like that, I can only imagine what that would feel like. Dan, we're at the end here, so if anyone listening would like to find out more about Dan, go to danharariauthor.com.
Right, exactly.
danharariauthor.com.
You can see about my books and my bio, and you can email me, and I'd love to hear from you. Also, I'm the head of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which you didn't talk about today. HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. Check us out. We're a nonprofit group putting UFO experiencers and Hollywood storytellers together. HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. Thank you, Alan. It was great, man. That went so fast.
It really did. Yeah, I really enjoyed chatting with you, Dan.
You too, man. That was great.
One last question before we go, and probably one of the most important questions of the evening. Are dragons real?
I have nothing to do with dragons. However, I will end with this. The first chapter of my new book is called My Gargoyle. My Gargoyle. When I was 5, I fell off a 30-foot tall billboard sign. I was climbing with 2 little girlfriends.
Whoa.
I fell off the sign. I'm floating in midair. As I'm falling, I'm floating in midair, and I'm falling in slow motion. Then I have missing time. I swear this is true. I have missing time. I woke up on a couch two blocks away.
Yeah.
I woke up on a couch. I opened my eyes. I remember thinking, am I dead? Honestly, I remember thinking, am I dead? I look around. No one is home in this house. I'd never been in this house in my life. I turn to leave, Alan. There's a cryptid. I swear to God, there's a cryptid at the front door, 7-foot tall being. Bottom half looked like a donkey's body with 2 legs. Top half looked like it had been an angel with wings that had been clipped off because they had bony stumps. Had face of a bull. It looked at me and it snorted. It went like that. It snorted at me, and I'm 5. And I'm like, what? That thing doesn't like me. This thing walked through the door, vanished. I walked home, and it was my daughter says, Dad, that was a gargoyle. It saved your life when you fell off the sign. And I think that's true because I know that happened. That's my first memory.
That's fascinating. The gargoyle kind of actually reminds me of the Jersey Devil. If we can bring it back.
Well, it was Neptune, New Jersey. maybe it was, man.
Yeah, maybe the devil isn't what people think it is.
Well, Dan, this thing saved my life because if you fall 30 feet and you're 5 years old, you're probably going to get hurt. I was perfectly fine.
Oh yeah,
nothing was bad. I was perfectly fine. So anyway, brother, I know we have to go. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it, and thank you all for joining us. This has been a great conversation. If you like Coffee and UFOs or Mystic Lounge podcast found here on the Mystic Lounge YouTube channel, please like, comment down below, subscribe, and click the notification bell because sometimes we have unexpected shows, so you don't want to miss those. Please tune into the UNX Network and all other great shows. So special thanks to Race Hobbs and Margie K at the UNX Network. And I will see you all on the flip side. In the meantime, peace and love, and take care, everyone.
It's good to be an earthling. I wish more of us would think of ourselves that way.
And I don't have a problem with skeptics. It's debunkers that are on some other level that I don't understand.
Well, if there's a good thing.
Essentially an inference of a change in local gravity.
Saucer-shaped craft. They're hovering over the water.
Blue Book Special Report 14. The better the quality of the sighting, the more likely to be unexplainable.